Hi everyone. Thanks for hopping on. My name is Carolyn and I'm on the Pinterest Partner Operations team. We'll be starting shortly, but first I'll just introduce myself. I work on the Partner Ops team and every day I work with businesses like you to help set up new promoted pins, optimize campaigns, and make Pinterest work for your business. So today we'll be covering some campaign optimization tips. In the first 2 minutes, let's just do a sound check. If you can hear me, can you chat in and say good, that you can hear us, or raise your hand in the icon? Okay, so it seems like most of you can hear us. If you can't, Abby, my teammate, will chat a reminder for you that we will be emailing out a recording of this presentation tomorrow morning. So everyone who registered for this webinar will be able to access it later on. We will also be including the link to the webinar that we ran on Tuesday. So if you missed the Getting Started campaign, Getting Started webinar, we'll have that for you as well. Cool. So I think I'm going to get started. So first, I'm going to talk about the agenda that we have today. So today we're going to cover how the Pinterest auction works, how we recommend structuring your campaigns. I'll go a little bit deeper into targeting and what we recommend for keywords and interest targeting, and then conclude with a checklist that you can refer to as you set up your first campaigns. And at the end, we will also have a Q&A. So this webinar is listen only. However, you can chat in questions at any point throughout the webinar. My teammate Abby will be keeping track of all your questions, and we'll pick out the top asked questions and answer them at the end. Awesome. So first let's talk about the fundamentals. Where do promoted pins appear on Pinterest? So there's various places that they appear. They could appear in your home feed, which is a personalized feed unique to each person. We craft it specifically based on a person's interests and what we know that they love and what they save. Then we have categories, which are topic-based locations on Pinterest. So we have, for example, a food and drink section, a home decor section, and fashion and a beauty section. And we have search. So this is for people who are looking for ideas, looking for products to buy, and they actually can search and find very specific results on Pinterest. And last but not least, we have related pins. So Pinterest knows very well what our users are interested in. So we can actually suggest pins based on recent searches that are related to what they're interested in. So first, let's talk about an overview of the auction. Some of you may be familiar with what an auction is if you've used Google or Facebook advertising. But if you haven't, don't worry. This sounds more complicated than it actually is. On the fundamentals, it's a generalized second price auction. So what that means is that businesses that are targeting similar keywords or interests will be competing against each other to get ad placements. What does a second price auction mean? This means that you'll only pay what's needed to beat the next highest bidder on an auction that's targeting the same keywords or interests. So here's an example. If I bid $2 on a promoted pin in a traffic campaign, and the next highest bidder targeting similar keywords and interests is bidding $165, the most I would pay is $166, which is 1 cent over what my competitor is paying. So this is really great for businesses because you can definitely stay within your budget and stay within your business goals when you're running Pinterest promoted pins. So next, I'll talk about how Pinterest actually decides where to place your ads. So first is with data that you provide on your promoted pins. So that's your targeting. You're basically telling Pinterest, I want to target these users who are interested in these things and searching or interested in these keywords. Next, we'll also look at your bid. So this is how much you're willing to pay for an action on your promoted pin. We have 3 different types of campaigns. So there are 3 different types of ways that you can bid on your promoted pins, and we'll go over that more in detail later on. And then last but not least is the performance of your ads. So after the first day, we have some signal as to how people are interacting with your ads and if people are finding it relevant. So that will factor into the performance later on in your campaign. So I want to cover some campaign basics. If you haven't already set up a campaign, Pinterest Ads Manager is organized on the campaign level. So within each campaign, you can create multiple promoted pins. Your daily or lifetime budget is set at the campaign level. And then within a campaign, you can add 1 or more promoted pins, and bids and targeting are set at the pin level. So again, a bid tells us the maximum amount that you're willing to pay for different actions on a promoted pin. So if you look at the example on the top right, this is a traffic campaign with a $100 daily budget. And within that campaign, there are 3 promoted pins. The first pin has a $1 cost per click. So what this means is that this advertiser is willing to pay at most $1 whenever someone clicks through on their ad to their website. The next pin over is bidding at $150. So that's, again, bids are set at the promoted pin level. But as a whole, all 3 of these pins will not spend more than $100 per day. If any one of these pins in combination hits $100 daily budget, that campaign will pause and restart the next day. So budgets are a really great way to make sure that you're staying within your advertising budget. So next I'll cover the 3 different types of campaigns that you can use in Ads Manager. The first one is traffic campaigns. So this one is for businesses that have traffic goals. So your goal is to drive as much traffic to your website and drive conversions. So the bid type for this type of campaign is cost per click. So for your promoted pins within traffic campaigns, you only pay when people click on your ad to your website. And the metric to look at for this type of promoted pin is CTR, or click-through rate. So this is the number of people who clicked on your promoted pins divided by the number of people who viewed your ad. The higher the click-through rate, this means that people are finding your ad very relevant. So in general, this depends from what keywords and interests you're targeting, but we've seen that a 0.1 to 0.3% click-through rate is considered healthy. If you notice that your traffic campaigns have promoted pins with less than 0.1% click-through rate, then it might be time to start thinking about ways to optimize, which we will cover on a later slide. Next is engagement campaigns. So this is for businesses with goals of driving saves, clicks, and close-up views on their promoted pins. Important to note that for this type of campaign, promoted pins are charged per engagement. So the definition of engagement is save, close-up, and clicks. So you'll be charged for these 3 different actions. And the metric to look at for these types of promoted pins is engagement rate. So this is the number of people who've engaged with your promoted pin over the number of people who've viewed it. And in general, we've seen that 2 to 2.5% is a pretty strong engagement rate. If you fall below that, it might be time to optimize. And last but not least, we have a new offering called Awareness Campaign. So this is a really great option for larger businesses with goals of reaching as many people as possible. And the optimization lever is basically views. So you're trying to broadcast your pins to as many people as possible, and the bid type is cost per 1,000 impressions. But for the purposes of this webinar, we'll be focusing on optimization tips for engagement and traffic campaigns. So after you've set up your campaigns and you start adding pins within those campaigns, you'll have the option of selecting your bids. So for traffic campaigns, this will be your cost per click or CPC bid. For engagement campaigns, this will be your CPE bid. So again, since Pinterest is on an auction, you are competing with other businesses that are targeting similar keywords and interests. So as a best practice, we do suggest that you try to keep within the range of the competition. When you're creating promoted pins, when you get to the section of setting your CPC or CPE bid, you'll see that we have some bid guidance for you. So in that screenshot on the bottom of the slide, you can see that an advertiser put 150 as their bid, and Pinterest is telling them that this is a pretty strong bid compared to the competition. And the text under that box shows the range. So it seems like other advertisers are bidding between 90 cents and $1.49. So bids, the general best practice for bids is that you want to start with a bid that you're comfortable with, that makes sense for your business goals, but gives you a great start to your campaign. Because when starting out, Pinterest doesn't have as much signal as to how your ad is performing. We have basic understanding of the relevancy of your ad based on targeting. So in the beginning of your campaign, your bids will be more important. So if possible, and if it makes sense for your business goals, make sure that your bid is within the range, and then try to be in that good range. So next, we'll be talking about campaign structure and setup. Thinking about how many promoted pins you should add to each campaign. So the first recommended setup is a more simple one, where you add one promoted pin per campaign. So the benefit of this is that Pinterest campaigns actually optimize all of the pins within it. So what this means is that if you put 5 pins within campaign 1, Pinterest will basically select the strongest pin or top performing pin and allocate as much delivery to that pin as possible. So if you want to get the most mileage out of each and every one of your pin creatives, we suggest creating a structure where you have one promoted pin per campaign, because that way none of your pins will be optimized out of ad delivery. So the next recommended setup is one campaign containing multiple pins. Starting out, we highly recommend you keep this simple and use 3 pins max. So this option is good if you're testing different pin creatives. So for example, if I am a shoe company and I have 3 different shoe product images that are driving to the same goal, but I want to see which one works best, I can put those 3 pins within a campaign and then use the same keywords and interest targeting. So that way I can A/B test which pin creative works the best. But I just want to call out, our recommendation for this is if you've run your campaign for a week and you notice that pin 1 is doing great and pin 2 and pin 3 aren't doing so great, it might be time to pause those pins so you can allocate more ad delivery to your first pin. So next I'm going to talk about some targeting basics. If you joined us for our Getting Started webinar, we went over this briefly and we'll go a little bit deeper in this webinar. Again, we will be sending out a recording if you missed that webinar. So on the basic level, we highly suggest all businesses to use interest and keyword targeting. This is the most basic level of targeting on promoted pins, and if you're just starting out, we suggest you use these 2 options. So for interest, this is a way to reach people on Pinterest based on their implied interests. For example, if you are a home decor business and you sell furniture and home accessories, you may want to target people who are interested in interior design, for example. So as a rule of thumb, pick 2 to 3 most relevant interests to target. Relevancy is extremely important here because you are targeting people that are higher up in the consideration funnel. They may be just shopping around, looking for ideas. So make sure that you just select the interests that are relevant and not more. Next, we highly suggest supplementing your interest targeting with keywords. So keywords get more specific. So we know that these audiences are intent-driven and they're searching on Pinterest for specific things to make, buy, or do. As a best practice, we suggest using 20 to 30 keywords starting out. And as you get more advanced and you really zero in on what keywords work for you, feel free to expand that up to 100. But when starting out, 20 to 30 is sufficient. And we suggest using a variety of keywords that are broad and specific. So an example of this is if I am that dress company that you see the pin on the left, I want to target keywords that are both higher up in the funnel and keywords that are lower down in the funnel. So an example of this is I may target women's fashion, so that's a little bit more broad, and get really specific as to what occasions that people would be considering your products, such as graduation, weddings, or even, trying to think, graduation, weddings, and galas, for example. So as a best practice, don't just repeat similar keywords in different ways. For example, little black dress and little black dresses. Pinterest will basically identify those as the same keywords. The most important thing is to make sure that you have a good variety so that when you launch your promoted pin, you can have learnings 7 days out and know like which keywords are really working for you and add more of those. So we do have additional targeting options. We gave you the option to target location, device, language, and gender. And as a best practice, really keep these targeting parameters as broad as possible. Because note that each additional layer of targeting will make your ad delivery more specific, but it will also limit the amount of people who see your ads. I really want to call out for location targeting. If it makes sense for your business, if your business is online and you're trying to drive online conversions, really try to make this as broad as possible. If you're servicing the whole US or you serve US and UK, definitely try to keep this broad. And for gender, same. If you can keep this as broad as possible, if it makes sense for your business. But for example, if you are a women's fashion brand, you would want to target female and unspecified. So I will briefly cover audience targeting. So this is a more sophisticated targeting option that we recently launched. And this is really great for businesses that have large customer lists or already implemented conversion tags on their website that can track visitors. If you're just starting out, again, I highly suggest focusing on interest and keyword targeting just to start. And as you get more familiar with the Pinterest Ads Manager, start experimenting with these more advanced targeting options. But again, these are optional. They're not required. So if you're just creating your first promoted pin, let's just stick with interests and keywords. And if you have questions about more advanced targeting options, know that there's always a team here at Pinterest to help you. Definitely go to help.pinterest.com and see if we have any articles that answer your questions. And if not, you can reach out to us and we can answer your customer list or visitor targeting questions. So next I'm going to go through an optimization checklist, things that you should go and try if you're not seeing performance or you're not seeing ad delivery. So the first thing is the easiest way to optimize, which is basically refine your targeting. If you see that your pin is not getting a lot of click-through rates or not getting high click-through rates, so it's like falling below 0.1% for your traffic campaigns, or if your engagement rate on your engagement campaigns is like falling below 0.2%, you may want to refine your targeting. So what that means is go to Ads Manager and go to that pin and look at which keywords are driving the most clicks and engagements, and which keywords and interests aren't driving any clicks and engagements. So you can actually edit your pin and remove the keywords and interests that aren't working for you and add more related ones that are working for you. Just keep in mind, whenever you edit your targeting, your pin will go back into review. So it will take 1 business day for us to approve it again. But once it's approved, it'll be back up and running. So the next lever is really important. In this webinar, we've covered the optimization tips that you can control within Ads Manager, but I can't emphasize how important creative optimizations are on Pinterest. Pinterest is an extremely visual platform, so that means that really the first impression of your pin is the image. We will be talking about some creative optimization tips in a webinar next Thursday. So definitely look out for our email where we will give you instructions on how to register for that one if you haven't already. And then next is increasing your bids. So if you see that your pins aren't getting much delivery and you notice that you're falling outside of that suggested range, what this means is that other advertisers that are targeting the same interests and keywords are actually bidding higher than you. So your pin may be having trouble getting into the auction. So in this case, we recommend that you up your bids and be at least within that range, if not at a good range. And then last but not least is increasing your budget. So if you see that you're getting pretty strong click-through rates, really good engagement rates, so again, the benchmark is over 0.1 to 0.3% for a traffic campaign, and over 2% for engagement campaigns, maybe it's time to increase your budget. Increasing your budget will essentially allow your ad to run longer each day if you're setting a daily budget, and allow your campaign to run longer if you're using a lifetime budget. So that will increase the reach of your promoted pins. And I'll briefly cover conversion optimizations. So as a rule of thumb, always think about what that click-through or engagement experience is going to be like. So especially for traffic campaigns, if you're trying to drive conversions on your site, make sure that your pin click-through destination URLs are going to a place where people can easily check out. Or if you're trying to drive signups, make sure and test that signup page. Test it on desktop, test it on mobile, make sure it works, make sure the flow is simple and easy. Because Pinterest can drive traffic to your page, but you want to make sure that that experience on your landing page is really conducive to conversions and hitting your business goals. So I'll wrap up with some key takeaways, and then we can open up to Q&A. Definitely feel free to start chatting in your questions now. Abby's looking through them right now. But we went over Pinterest and how it runs on a second price auction. We covered 2 recommended campaign structures. Again, if you're just starting out, we recommend keeping it simple and adding 1 promoted pin per campaign. Then we covered budgets and bids and how to customize them to match your business goals. And then last but not least, we went over some targeting tips and optimization checklists. So I want to pitch our 2 upcoming webinars coming up next week. If you want to dive into Pinterest analytics and ads reporting and know what metrics you should be looking at, definitely register for our upcoming analytics and ads reporting webinar on Tuesday. We'll follow up with an email going to that registration link. We'll have another training on Thursday of next week going through some Pin Creative best practices. Cool. Now we'll look through your questions. And Abby, feel free to unmute and take it away.
Cool. So Sophia and I are here to answer some of the most popular questions that you guys have been chatting. Thank you for so many great questions. First, I just want to clarify some questions around budget that Heather and Sadie and a few others asked. There is no minimum daily budget. Just set your budget at whatever you're comfortable spending. So keep in mind, if you do have multiple campaigns, your total account might spend the sum of each campaign's budget. So if you have 3 campaigns and each have $10 daily budgets, each day your account might spend up to $30. But you can choose whatever budget you want for your campaign, and you can edit it anytime through the Ads Manager. So Sophia's going to answer another question. I do see that some people ask questions about how bids work, and they want more clarification on how you compete against other people, and if your bid isn't the highest, will you still show? So if Sophia, do you want to go over that real quick?
Yep, as Carolyn mentioned, we are a second price auction, so that means you can select a bid telling us what you're willing to pay for a click or an engagement. So if you're willing to pay $1, you will never pay more than $1 to win that auction. Now, if a competitor is bidding more for the same target or placement, and their bid is higher, they could definitely win that auction if they have a stronger bid and stronger creative. So what you really want to focus on is having the strongest creative possible, because our auction will look at your click-through rate or the strength of your creative, and we'll look at your bid and your targeting to decide if your content is the best to win that auction. There was another question around, will you ever compete against yourself if you have multiple pins in the same campaign? So you will never compete against yourself for price, but you could compete for placement. So if you're wanting to do an A/B test of different creative, if you have similar creative and you want our system to actually optimize towards the strongest creative, you can place multiple pins in one campaign to have our system actually decide what is the strongest creative to win that auction. But if you have pins in separate campaigns, again, you're never going to bid against yourself for price.
And I did see another question from Paul and a few others asking about the keyword recommendation that we gave, 20 to 30 keywords, asking if it was okay to add even more. We recommend, you're totally fine to add more keywords. Just keep in mind that you'll want to make sure they're relevant to your promoted pin. So if you're adding keywords that don't have anything to do with your pin, it'll probably end up that your pin won't have as strong of a quality score as someone else's, because the keywords you're targeting don't make sense for your pin. So you're welcome to add more than 20 to 30 keywords as long as they're relevant, but 20 to 30 keywords should be enough to get started if that's all you have.
And some suggestions on just how to think about keywords. If you're actually building your campaigns and you type in dress, for example, we'll give you suggestions for other relevant keywords that you could use. And another tip is, if you go on Pinterest search and you search again using the example dress, you'll see below guided search, which shows you what people sometimes search around dress. So dress styles, cocktail dresses, and this can also give you some great ideas as to how people use Pinterest search, so you can make sure that you have the most relevant keywords possible that you're targeting.
And Jacqueline asked a really good question about the landing page experience. If you want to touch on that, Sophia, the question is basically, what is the best page to drive to for your promoted pin? So if you want to answer that, I think it's a really good question.
Yeah, great question. You really want to make sure that the page that you are setting as the destination URL that you're driving people to from your pin is aligned to the goal that you have. So if your goal is to drive signups, you want to make sure that your landing page has a very clear sign up call to action. Or if your goal is to drive product sales, you want to make sure that you're driving them to that product so they can see it and purchase it right away. So just make sure that your flow really maps to the goal that you have.
Yeah, and so I think we have time for one more question, and then we'll follow up by sending out a link to today's webinar and the webinar from Tuesday. And if you have additional questions, you can definitely visit our help center at help.pinterest.com. So Sophia, if you want to take the last question, and then we'll wrap things up.
Yeah, a question on can we talk about the ideal campaign structure if you're an e-commerce site with different product categories and want to drive traffic to their conversion funnel? So they give the example of they have windows, patios, entry doors, and flooring. So first off, if you're an e-commerce site and your ultimate goal is to drive qualified clicks, traffic, and conversions, you're going to want to first focus on building a cost per click campaign. That's the best way to really drive those qualified clicks, and you're only going to pay if someone directly clicks through to your site. So again, taking this example, if you have 4 main products, you'll want to select a strong pin for each product that you have and build it out in its own campaign, 1 pin per campaign. And then for each campaign, select a minimum of 30 keywords that are relevant to that product. So again, think broadly, taking the example of patio doors, think about the way that people might search on Pinterest around patio doors, around home. So you could target home projects, home ideas, patio ideas, and then you could be a bit more narrow and actually target keywords relevant to patio doors.
Awesome. Thanks, Sophia, and thanks, Carolyn, for presenting. We're glad everyone was able to tune in and take a look at the webinar recording. If you want to follow up on anything we covered, we'll send out an email.